Hello, everyone, and welcome to Nation Watch for today, Sunday, 8 June 2025. We're getting closer and closer to election, and we are recognizing by the moment that the Guyana Elections Commission is clearly not ready. Clearly, the GCOM is not ready for holding these elections. Clearly, if these elections are run in the manner that GCOM intends to run with them, the credibility of these elections will be highly questionable. GCOM, some in GCOM continue to lay blame at the feet of the opposition nominated commissioners who are struggling to have elections issues discussed and determined while the PPP appointed commissioners seem to have other objectives. We know when the date for election eventually comes, Guyana will grow because the PPP will go. We started a bit late today because we anticipate that with the weather conditions, people may take a little while longer to get home. And we have some very, very important issues to discuss today. And we have the experts to discuss those issues with us for the benefit of the listening and viewing public. But there's something here that I must bring to your attention. In Linden yesterday, a student of a particular school in that municipality was found with 2 rounds of live ammunition. The teachers reportedly called the parent, the male parent, who declined to visit the school, as far as we understand. The teachers reportedly caused a formal report of the matter to be made to the police in the municipality. We are yet to hear a news report on the item. We are yet to hear a comment from the Ministry of Education on the matter. We are yet to hear any pronouncements from any government official on this matter. What we do know is that the father of this child is a known PPP activist, living and operating in Region 10. What we also know is that we have a voice recording of the same gentleman verbally abusing, using the nastiest of expletives, teachers of the same school days before. We expect that the police will make a statement on this matter shortly. We expect that the Ministry of Education will not only make a statement, but tell the nation exactly what they intend to do about this particular matter. And we expect to hear that charges are laid where appropriate for the possession of live ammunition. We know that in an amendment passed to the Firearms Act as early as maybe 2008 or somewhere around there, that to be found with a bullet or a component of a bullet or a firearm or a component of a firearm means that a person will be held without bail until perhaps good reason is presented to the court. In this case, a child is found with live ammunition. Obviously, checks will have to be made to find out if his father is a licensed firearm holder. And if he's not, whether there's an illegal firearm somewhere around the home. I believe that's where they'll have to start. We'll get advice on that as we go ahead. Second point to note, you remember Odessa Primus? I've never met you, Odessa, but I'm sure you were watching. You all remember when Odessa Primus traveled back to Guyana, reportedly involuntarily? A lot of people were anxious and excited and interested in Odessa's return and the allegations of our visa being, quote, revoked, unquote. You remember that? And then it turned out that Odessa had opted instead of revocation, she'd opted to agree to have her visa canceled with the right to reapply. And the entire media corps was there. All interested parties in the informal media was also there. And it was a big story. Now we're hearing the Thursday, what's it? Is it a press conference still? Not sure. But the monologues, the cuss-out monologues that we have in Guyana on Thursdays, made a big hype of it, that she lost her visa because of her association with a particular businessman. Well, guess what? Mr. Jagdeo has a friend, very good friend from way back, who's always been holding on to his skirt tail. I'm sorry. Did I say skirt tail? No, I meant shirt tail. I beg your pardon. This gentleman was always holding on to Mr. Jagdeo's shirt tail. And when he was president, and featured a lot in government circles back then. More recently, he has been appointed a member of the Protected Areas Commission. I have an image of the gentleman, which we'll share with you. Mr. Brian James, whose image we'll put up there in a minute. Odessa was accused that she lost her visa because of association with a particular businessman. And I'm wondering if Mr. Jagdeo cares to tell us if this gentleman, who also allegedly lost his visa by revocation instead of cancellation, we understand, whether this gentleman lost his visa because of association with Mr. Jagdeo himself. You see, these things are floating around. We don't know. It is being alleged that this gentleman's visa has been revoked. US visa has been revoked. Is it because he's associating with Mr. Jagdeo? We don't know. And there's another gentleman who's a friend of Mr. Ali's, who also allegedly had his visa revoked. We'll come to that in a moment. But this is Mr. Jagdeo's friend. It is suggested that this gentleman was replaced by Sue as Mr. Jagdeo's best friend. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you our two guests for today. Retired police Assistant Commissioner of Police, Mr. Paul Slowe, who also served as chair of the Police Service Commission, and Dr. Dexter Todd, attorney at law, who is handling a lot of high-profile cases in this country and who has risen to prominence because of the quality of his work. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Slowe and Dr. Todd will join us now. Welcome, gentlemen, to Nation Watch, and thank you both for joining us.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for having me. Let me speak for myself first. I'm sure Dr. Todd is very capable of speaking for himself. So thank you for having me, Mr. Williams. Nice to be here. Good afternoon to your viewers.
And likewise, Mr. Williams, thank you so much for having me. And I'm always pleased to have an opportunity to have fruitful discussions with yourself and your viewers.
Let's get down to business. Today is a serious day. Today is a serious day in the life of our country. Let's start off by talking about the Police Service Commission. Let me place this before our listening and viewing audience immediately. Article 210(2) of the Constitution, and as we are aware, the Constitution of Guyana is the supreme law of the land, and we have a former law enforcement officer and a practicing attorney at law who, if I'm incorrect, will appropriately pull me in line. But here's what Article 210(2) of the Constitution says. Subject to the provision of the next following paragraph, obviously that's 211, the office of an appointed member of the Police Service Commission shall become vacant at the expiration of 3 years from the date of his or her appointment, or at such earlier time as may be specified in the instrument by which he or she was appointed. We do not have access to the instrument, but what we do know is that members of the Police Service Commission were sworn in on June 1st, 2022, which suggests that the end of May 30th, 2025 would be the extent of the constitutional life of that body. Let's bring up the image of the members of the commission. And while we are having this conversation, there's something else I'll put on the table here for context. My understanding is that if the Police Service Commission is not fully constituted, then you have a problem with the commission functioning. What we know, in addition to what was just said, what we know is that Commissioner Mark Conway is now deceased. The late Commissioner Mark Conway died on November 5th, 2024. It therefore means, well, my understanding of what that means is that the commission was not fully constituted as of the 5th of November, 2024. And I'm here submitting myself to guidance by the experts. Therefore, a number of actions taken by this Police Service Commission seem, on the face of it, to be unconstitutional and without any binding effect. I will offer any one of you gentlemen to take us from here in this conversation going forward.
Well, let me open the baton as the immediate past chairman of the Police Service Commission. I'm well familiar with that Article 210, subsection 2. On my program, Speaking Out, Exposing Corruption and Incompetence on Friday, I made mention of that. The Police Service Commission, the life of the Police Service Commission is 3 years, and it automatically ends. There's no need for any documentation from the president or whoever to say that the life has ended. The Constitution says that once you, from the date of your instrument, 3 years after, the commission ceased to exist. In my case, we were sworn in along with the other members on the 9th of August 2018, and therefore automatically on the 8th of August 2021, that commission life came to an end. And now you said that this current commission, well, let me refer to them as the previous because there's no current commission. They were sworn in, you said on the 1st of June, but my research showed it might have been even before that, because I have a photograph in one of the dailies dated on the 31st of May 2022 that they were sworn in, and the thing said that was a Tuesday. 31st of May 2022 was a Tuesday, and it said they were sworn in last Tuesday. So I don't know if it's the same Tuesday we're referring to as last Tuesday, which means that they would have been sworn in before the 31st day of May 2022. And according to my record, I'm not a mathsman, but it means therefore that is by the 31st of May 2025, the life of that commission would have ended. And this is outside of the fact that, as you said, Mr. Conway died in November, and the question as to whether the commission could have continued to work, being not fully constituted, that is a question for the legal people. Perhaps Dr. Todd will take it up. But I am saying, based on Article 210.2, the life of the commission, this commission chaired by Patrick Finlay, ended about a week or so ago.
Dr. Todd, your take.
I agree. I agree with Mr. Slowe, and I think it does not need further deliberation in terms of whether the commission is or has been for the last couple of days moving forward um, properly constituted. I believe the Constitution, the provision in the Constitution is very, very clear. I mean, I don't want to even go back that even prior to the life of the commission coming to an end when it was already ruled that it was not properly constituted in the first place. And even after that ruling of the Chief Justice came, there was absolutely nothing. So the life of the commission or the commission, a police service commission, has been unconstitutional for quite a long time in this country, but yet still continuing to operate and to make certain decisions because the argument of necessity cannot continue, and I believe there was an undertaking since back then over 2 years ago to ensure that there were steps taken to properly bring the commission in line, but nothing has been done. So the clear answer is that the Constitution, the provision is very clear. They're very much not fully constituted, and therefore they cannot or should not continue to operate and make certain decisions.
Right. Now, I want to share just a little bit of information before I ask the next question. You see the gentleman there? Can we zoom in on Mr. Ernesto Chuofat, please? Mr. Chuofat is a member of this commission. Mr. Chuofat, well, was a member of the last commission. I beg your pardon. It is alleged that Mr. Chuofat's visa was revoked by the United States authorities. Mr. Chuofat is believed to be a very close ally of Mr. Irfan Ali. And it will be interesting to know whether Mr. Irfan Ali knew of the alleged revocation while this gentleman sat on the Police Service Commission. Because of the nature of confidentiality surrounding revocation of visas, we don't have all of the information dealing with the whys of the revocation, as alleged. But the nature of issues that lead to revocation of visas from the United States or issued by the United States are largely on the criminal side. It is a form of sanction, if you will. And it is going to be very interesting to find out if Mr. Ali was aware of the alleged revocation of his friend's US visa while he sat as a functioning member of the Police Service Commission. So 2 presidents, 2 friends, 2 visa revocations, and we move on. Gentlemen, the US authorities sanctioned some Guyanese citizens a few days ago. I believe the notice may have been issued while the monologue was taking place, and maybe a few buckets may have been lined up, but we are uncertain of that aspect of it quite now at this moment. But these 4 Guyanese were sanctioned. And one of them is a very senior police officer. And those familiar with the ranks of the police force, as Mr. Slowe is, will know that Mr. Himnat Saw holds the rank at the 4th level of the police high command. We will get to the issue of the reason for Mr. Saw's and the others, the sanctions applied to Saw and the others in a minute. But the actions of the Police Service Commission, or what purports to be the Police Service Commission, we've just heard about the unconstitutional nature of that body as we speak. It was the same at the time of the issuing of the sanctions. And it is about time that the members or former members of the commission, whose pictures we just had up there, it is time that they come forward and disassociate themselves from the publication of information to the effect that they sent him, not Saw, on administrative leave, because they lack the lawful authority so to do. And if perchance they allow their names to be used in the manner in which it was used in the news release by the police, then it would appear to me as a citizen of this country, as a layman, that they appear to be complicit in an act to protect something or somebody. Mr. Slowe.
Yeah, let's be careful about this, because I don't think that the Police Service Commission or the Secretary for the Police Service Commission has issued any statement in respect to this sanction matter. What we are hearing from the Ministry of Home Affairs and from the police is that the Police Service Commission acted immediately to send Saw on administrative leave. That is what they are saying. But the fact that they have been misleading the public so often, we cannot believe necessarily what they're saying, because for all you know, the commission might have recognized that they no longer have the legal authority, the constitutional authority to do anything, and may not have been functioning, right? And you're correct. If it is that their names are used in this manner, it behoves them to come forward and to say, to disassociate themselves from this unconstitutional act. More so, since we know that the chairperson, the chairman of the Police Service Commission, is said to be a religious bishop, and one would expect somebody with integrity will come forward and to say, no, we have not been, we are not lawful, we are not constitutional, and therefore we did not. But you shouldn't hold your breath. They're not going to come and say anything. And I picked it up from very early. And I said that the Police Service Commission is a dead body. The life ended sometime in May 2025. We are into June. And therefore, they had no authority to act as a commission. And therefore, no one has the authority to send Imnad Shah, who is sanctioned by the U.S. for say, quote unquote, quote, drug trafficking, unquote, to send him on administrative leave, because there is a decision by the Honorable Justice Corbyn in the case of Moti Duki versus the Attorney General, that only the Police Service Commission can send a rank from the force, rank from inspector up to assistant commissioner, on administrative leave. So, I mean, this thing is so laughable what they're coming up. It's an excuse. The sanctions came out. They were caught off guard because, notwithstanding the fact that they claim to have a very good relationship with the U.S., I believe that they are not trusted. So nobody's going to give them an heads up. So when it comes out, then they rush the very night. That was Thursday, I think the sanctions came out. The very night, they rush with these press releases, and they're just lying. They are just lying.
Dr. Todd, you just laid the foundation for this aspect of the conversation going forward. You referenced a particular court matter as well. What can be the consequences of the actions of a body that purports to be a constitutional commission when it acts outside of the framework of its mandate, extra constitutional action, or what ought reasonably to be some of the consequences?
Mr. Williams, you're asking me a lot of easy questions today. It is clear. I mean, again, I want to piggyback on what Mr. Slowe said. The Police Service Commission or any member who so acted under that commission never officially said or made any statement in relation to actions taken by the commission. I would think that that was a deliberate act, seeing that they probably by now are aware as to the difficulties they will face, seeing that they are not a properly constituted. Now, any action flowing from a commission which has not been properly constituted is not lawful. So it means that the Guyana police force will be in a quandrum because, as Mr. Slowe correctly said, this has been the legal position for a long time. Not even the commissioner has the power under the law to send Mr. Saw on administrative leave. So they are going to be in a quandrum. Government cannot do it, cannot be issued by the Ministry of Home Affairs. So really and truly, this entire sending on administrative leave, I don't believe that they are expecting people who understand the law to take them very seriously in this regard.
It appears to me that the establishment of a civilian communications unit in the Guyana Police Force was a carefully thought out action, because it appears to me that the Guyana Police Force often and conveniently hides behind the incompetence of this might be deliberate incompetence, if there's such a thing, of this civilian unit, because it is the same civilian unit that reported that in the Adriana Young matter, the now deceased child had left the premises in a motor vehicle, clearly providing a registration number for the vehicle, a make, a model, and the colors of the vehicle, and specifics as to which direction it went in, it traveled in. And that turned out to be a blatant lie. There have been no consequences for that. Yes, the divisional commander was sent on administrative leave, again by a commission, a police service commission that appeared not to be at the time properly constituted as well. The consequences for the police force itself for misleading the public seem not to be consistent with the consequences for ordinary citizens who are accused of the same act, Mr. Slowe.
Well, first I want to say that the unit, the Police Corporate Communications Unit, which came into existence a few years ago, is headed by a civilian. They have police, my understanding, they have police ranks in that unit. Relatively junior ranks, people with little policing experience. So it would appear as though the head of that unit, Mark Ramatar, he makes these releases, or at least he approves of these things. And the thing, many times it's embarrassing. I call them the propaganda unit, because what they issue is not many times police releases. It's propaganda. And it is damaging. It has damaged and continues to damage the image of the force. Because when you have the police making official releases, which are easily debunked, I mean, your credibility goes through the window. And if you have a police force, you have a credible, viable police force, one would expect whatever communications come from the police force is credible, so that people can believe what they're saying. And this is not an isolated incident with this corporate communications unit as it is now structured. Not an isolated incident. Frequently, they come with these false reports. One can recall the Linden incident, where the young man Peters, Ronaldo Peters, I think was his name, was shot and killed. Immediately they came out with a release to say that the policemen who went to apprehend him were all dressed in uniform. And shortly
In a marked police vehicle too.
police vehicle, and shortly thereafter we saw it was a civilian vehicle, not marked police vehicle. And all of those people were not dressed in uniform. We had an incident back a few years ago with Orrin Boston, shot and killed in his bed. They came out with a statement that he attacked the police, attempted to take away the firearm from the police. Evidence came out to show the man was lying naked in his bed with his wife when he was shot and killed. And those are only two of the misleading incidents that they have been giving. And then there are other matters that they choose not to report on. Look, only last week, I think it was sometime early last week, there was a matter at West Demerara, I think it was Canal number 1 or somewhere there, where a police vehicle was chasing a car. The person in the car might have committed some crime or offense. The car crashed into a young man at the side of the road and killed him on the spot. I have not seen a release from that up to date like today. We had a case across the river too, where a man was beaten and killed. It took 1 month and complaints from the family and all of that. Then they came with a very mendacious statement to address. So the corporate communication unit is doing the police force no good. And it would appear that the senior officers who are there, including the commissioner and the crime chief, they have given this unit carte blanche to say and to do whatever they want to do, and it will continue to damage the credibility and the image of the force. Whatever little is left, they continue to damage it.
Dr. Todd, the gentleman on screen here was the commander for Regional Division 1, Barima Whiney. A large geographic space, mostly to the border with Venezuela, right through from the Barima River, right all the way to the top of the map there. Access to Region 1 is by air or ocean. The Caribbean and South America are accessible from there if you exit into the Atlantic and navigate your way. This gentleman was the commander there. And interestingly, after 17 years, he holds the 4th highest rank in the police force, while Mr. Slowe was stagnated for 13 years as assistant commissioner, right? So this gentleman, interestingly, there was an engagement with Jagdeo and the villagers in the sub-region of Mabaruma on a particular day. And this gentleman as commander allegedly moved ranks out of the Matakai district, the Matakai sub-region, which includes Matthews Ridge, and placed them in security roles at Mabaruma for Mr. Jagdeo's visit. It was on the same day, I believe, that the largest bust in Guyana's territory, cocaine bust, was made at Matthews Ridge. I think 4.4 tons of cocaine buried at what is reportedly an illegal airstrip. Well, I know where the Matthews Ridge official airstrip is, and but this one is somewhere nearby at an illegal airstrip. This gentleman was in command. The U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency did not include the Guyana Police Force in this operation. This gentleman could not have known that this operation was going to take place. And so while he was happily rubbing shoulders with Jagdeo at Mabaruma, the external forces in collaboration with Kanu unearthed this cocaine. The police never acted. The government never acted against this gentleman until the public started to speak out on this matter. Then they transferred him to a workshop environment. There was never an inquiry about his conduct. No questions were ever asked about how heavy equipment got there to construct an illegal airstrip without him knowing. No indication, despite at least 5 semi-submersible vessels being found at Kaituma, in the Kaituma River. No investigation into this gentleman as to why he was not aware and what he did after the discovery. Nothing at all. But now the government of Guyana, through the president, is telling the citizens of this country that he is asking the U.S. Embassy in Georgetown for information that can help them to investigate this man. You are a former policeman. You are an attorney at law of tremendous accomplishment. Help us to understand, if you can, Dr. Todd, what's happening here if this is not a cover-up.
You see, I will start the discussion with a quote from the U.S. report. The U.S. has reported, and this has been quite some time. Now, if we go back, we would recognize that bilateral relationship between the Guyana and the United States were further strengthened in 2001 on the issue of the fight against drug trafficking. Now, if you look at their reports consistently, and this is the U.S. reports, this is not Guyana's reports, consistently there has always been a paragraph or two which deals with the concept of corruption. And so when you, and clearly they stated that corruption within the law enforcement, bribery, and other nepotism in the public sector and the political entities further complicate the fight against drug trafficking. That's not Todd's words. That's the words of from the U.S. report. Their report, which is public. So when you talk about an officer being in command and was unaware of the presence of the DEA and other institutions or entities on the ground in a division in which he is commander, you could tell that you got to take into consideration that most of these operations are intelligence-led. And so sometimes in terms of mapping out the entire protocol and what they will do, sometimes would not involve the people if they have an eye and have intelligence on the ground, which fingers persons as being also a part of the net. So it was, I believe it was a calculated move, but it does in terms of being a commander. I mean, Mr. Slowe is going to speak so much more on this because he has been a commander for many years. To have something happen of that magnitude in your division, I am telling you, it's not a very encouraging look for your career and of course your command skill in terms of being a commander and having these things under your watch. Because you must know, you have a responsibility to set up your own intelligence on the ground in your division, to get information and to be au fait with everything that is going on in your division. I mean, Mr. Slowe has been a commander and he will tell you, you can't be a commander and not know. Everything that happens in your division, you have to have some knowledge. If you're going to properly and effectively command that division.
Well, it appears that if there's a lack of knowledge on the part of the commander, it may be time for a properly constituted police service commission to take some action, Mr. Slowe.
Well, let me say this, given the process to constitute a police service commission, one cannot expect a properly constituted police service commission, properly constituted in terms of the constitution, but in terms of the individuals.
I'm not going there. I'm saying that at the time of the discovery,
well, let me say this.
If it was established that the man had no knowledge, it is such an opportune time that a properly constituted service commission should have gotten into action.
Yeah, well, let me say this. Let me give him some benefit. At best, he's incompetent. At best, if you are a divisional commander and this massive drug operation, because I am sure that the 4.4 tons of cocaine would not have landed there at one shipment. The evidence suggests otherwise. That place had to be excavated. It had to be reinforced. And this is what we have seen. So it was a massive operation over a period of time. And to have a commander of the police division who is not aware, let's say, give him the benefit, as best he is incompetent, and as worse as the U.S. is claiming, he is involved in the whole process in the drug trafficking, right? But you made a very significant point in that the government now jumping up. They're going to ask the Attorney General to request information from the U.S. This drug bust was since September last year, right? What the little that they did, they removed him from Region 1. They brought him to the transport workshop.
Under pressure only.
Under pressure. That should have caused them to initiate some investigation. Why are you waiting for the U.S. to tell you? The U.S. have already indicated clearly to you that they have no trust in the police force. They did not involve the police force. They did not involve the commissioner. They did not involve the crime chief. They did not involve anyone in the police force in the planning and execution of this operation. So what are you asking them for? You should have, as a matter of fact, if you really want to look at it, at that time they should have made a request. At that time, why did you not involve the police? Because it is highly suspicious for an agency such as the DA to be involved in such an operation, which you rightly said would have been intelligence-led, to the point where they kept the police out completely. And
intelligently.
Right, you want to tell me that should not have triggered some inquiry from the government of Ghana as to why they did not involve, so they could perhaps tell you something, well, we entrust them, or we believe they're involved in that. So to come now, when the sanctions have been announced, that you're going to request information, again, it's just window dressing. They're just trying to hoodwink us people. You know, the vice president made a statement some weeks ago, said Guyana get a lot of stupid people. All of us are not stupid.
Where he was the head.
Well, it appears he knows his team.
And he is the boss of anyway. But Mr. Slowe, I want to stay with you on this one. This gentleman, who at best is incompetent and who is sanctioned by the United States, as the authorities there put it, for being involved in drug trafficking, was being promoted to the second in charge of the operations of the Guyana Police Force. This tells the average citizen of this country that somebody higher up knows something that somebody else down at the bottom does not have knowledge of. And therefore, this man seems to have been protected.
But Marvin, let me say this. The people down at the bottom get the knowledge, you know. The people, let me tell you this from policing experience. When these things are going on, all these shenanigans, the junior ranks, because when a man in charge of a division is providing safe passage for cocaine and involved in drug smugglers, they say, I have a strong suspicion he can't do it alone.
He can't eat alone.
He cannot do it alone. You got to share the food. He can't eat alone. You got to share the food. And the people who are keeping him there too, suspicion is that they too are aware, but they're keeping that person there. You know, to pick up on what Dr. Todd said in that report, I think about a few weeks ago, the United States report, the latest report on the same issue, said that the Guyana police force is the weakest link in the fight against the drug traffickers. That, I'm not paraphrasing, but that is what came out. The weakest link. Why did they not ask them for information if the U.S. authorities are going to make such a damning statement that the Guyana police force, here they weren't speaking about individuals, they're speaking about the organization being the weakest link in the fight against drug, and you did absolutely nothing. You transfer Shah from Region 1 under pressure to the transport workshop. He holds the fourth most senior rank in the Guyana police force. Because the senior rank is the commissioner, then you have deputy commissioners, assistant commissioners, and senior superintendent, a rank that he holds. Right? You transfer him to the transport workshop where he takes over from a cadet officer. He takes over from a cadet officer, and shortly thereafter, he is he is elevated to the position of second in command of operations in the force. And it's again because of public pressure. When I talk about it, others spoke about it too. And then what happened? The police, the same police cooperation unit came out to say that it was not so. When we had evidence, we had the copies of the letter that was sent to him to say that he's taken over from Stevens at the 2IC operations. Then they reverted it. They reversed it. They sent him back to the transport workshop. And then shortly after we learned, they put him at the project unit. Some office located in the Mounted Branch compound, they put him there to work. This man should have, if you want to talk about administrative leave, he should have been sent on administrative leave since then when you had the opportunity to do so. But no, they didn't do anything. Why? Because they are covering for him. And
but why would a senior police officer's involvement or alleged involvement in crime be covered by his seniors?
Well, one can only suspect that, well, first of all, they might be in denial. They might be in denial. And there might be some form of complicity. Because let's understand this clearly. Shaw or no other senior officer, or no other officer for that matter, can take themselves up and go to say they're in charge of a division or subdivision. It's the force administration has to send them there, right? They can't go on their own. So if you send them there, and then you hear all of these things, because long before the cocaine was found, the 4.4 tons of cocaine in September last year, and the sanction, we who have our connections in the organization, we heard a lot of things. And you know, let's before I forget, SAR is not the only one who was fingered in that thing. Remember the story? I'm researching it to talk about it tomorrow and speaking out. There was a sergeant from the same region, a detective sergeant, who traveled to Miami.
In the US.
Exactly. From the same region for the same operation, same allegation, and he was posted back. And what they said? Oh, they said they sent him to the TSU. Well, wonder what happened to him. Wonder what happened to that sergeant. That was some time ago. So I'm saying this to say that I have been speaking repeatedly about the crisis in the management of the Guyana police force. They want to deny it. But the evidence is forthcoming. This is perhaps the most damning allegation against any senior police officer in the police force. This is not about somebody taking a little bribe. I'm not condoning that. But this is the U.S. saying that a senior police officer is involved in drug trafficking. And let me say this. Some time ago, a few months ago, a police officer of a similar rank in the Bahamas was indicted for drug trafficking in Miami, United States. Very shortly thereafter, the commissioner of police addressed the nation of Bahamas. He addressed the nation. And then you know what happened? A few days after that address, he resigned. He resigned because he said at the end of the day, he is in charge of the force. And if one of his officers is involved in such serious criminal activity, vicariously, he is responsible and he resigned. But in Guyana, the commission you have can't face the mic to address anyone about anything. You had Linden shoot. You had
83 square miles.
You can't face the mic, and he is not going to resign. These people have no shame, and let me tell you that he's not going to resign. And the force, as I've continued to say, the little image that is left of the force is going to continue to erode because, as they say, fish rots from the head.
You know, it appears as though they're not learning. Gentlemen, they are not learning. Nation Watch spoke a few weeks ago about some Warrow crab catchers who happened upon some packages on Shell Beach, picked them up, took them home, and they were visited by the police from the same division, Regional Division 1, from the same headquarters, Mabaruma. Nation Watch made the point that someone who has a previous association with the police force was involved. That's the report that we were getting. And that the police in their operation was helping this person recover some articles. And this is happening in the same division. And there's another commander there. And the operation came out of Mabaruma, where the headquarters of the division is situated. After we spoke, a news agency went after this matter. And I want to, Dr. Todd, treat you to this recorded report and then ask for your comments. Let's have that report. Compliments HGP News.
The police them say is somebody one they want it back and then give it to them. So that is the reason why I said that, well, they could lose them because it's not nothing that we making a living off and we, these things. So when they come in the first time, they never doubt, then say, yes, the thing is it. Look at there, and then give them it, and then go on with it, and they never to bring them back. Tell them they go bring them back, and they never to bring them back up to now. Me not hearing nothing from them since they gone.
Right. So the police beat up some people, and Mr. Slowe is familiar with this particular area. This is Imbotero Creek in Region 1. This is on the border with Venezuela. Guyana has a police outpost on one side, one bank of the creek, and the Venezuelans on the other. They beat up these people, throw away their food and all sorts of things as alleged by the people who live there. And what you heard the lady talking about there is the police operation. These 4 Warao men were arrested. They were taken to Mabaruma. They were beaten. Villagers, people from the municipality of Mabaruma could hear them screaming and begging as they passed by the police station. Yet Nation Watch spoke about it. HGP brought that report that you just saw. Dead silence from the High Command of the police. Nation Watch called on the police complaints authority and the what is the internal affairs referred to? What is it called here?
Office of Professional
Responsibility to become involved in an inquiry in this place. This Nation Watch called on the president, and I call on him again to cause an investigation to be conducted into this matter. These people are crab catchers and fishermen who live on the crabs they catch and the fish they catch. That's what they feed their families with. They happened on these packages, as the lady pointed out, and now there's no communication between the police and the family regarding the whereabouts or the state of well-being of the people who have been arrested and who have been brutally beaten, according to reports coming out of Mabaruma. Dr. Todd?
Well, I know that they have, from all indication of the news, that they have been charged. And I believe that at a trial, there should be some form of revealing of their level of employment. I can tell you that what has been a very strong legal principle is that a man cannot possess what he does not know he possesses. So from the news, it seemed as though they did not even know what the contents what the contents were in this particular regard. But more importantly, I believe what has been, and this has not been 1, 2 years, 3 years, this has been a progression in relation to what has been happening with the police force, where there has been excessive use of force. Just a few days ago, we saw the arrest of 2 young men in Lenora being thrown in a police vehicle, policeman with a baton, and was and I mean, and if we are not as citizens of this country, start to pull ourselves together and demand that better service comes from the Guyana Police Force, we are more in trouble than we are contemplating. We are in a lot of trouble because it seems as though many of the actions of the police, some of the members of the force, it's being covered up. Someone is protecting them. Some a set of persons in this force are allowed to do things without any form of repercussions. Putting them on close arrest alone, I believe, is not a long investigation. Where persons are passing and hearing the screams. Could you imagine that? Could you imagine that? You're hearing the screams of persons who are in custody. That is not the image of a police force. And that type of investigation must be condemned to the fullest, because it is the same police who appears now in court. And that is why I keep saying we are having troubles in the courts, because the same police comes to the court, they go before a magistrate, they swear, take an oath, and they go in the box and they give all sorts of stories that they have complied with the judge's rules. They read the man his rights. The man,
Give
after
him
they put
food.
an allegation and read him his rights, he freely, without any hesitation, give information, give the statement. And many times the people, when they go before the court, if a challenge is raised in relation to some form of ill treatment or some form of assault being meted out on them, no medical. And so it becomes even harder to establish that the person gave the statement without or being forced. So this is a progressive behavior that we have been seeing in all across, not only in Region 1, in all across this country, until it has reached to the stage, it has graduated to the stage of plain sight murders. This is where it's coming to. So a police force which their motto is service and protection. And I want to say this, Mr. Williams. I think it is about time, and sometimes it gets under my skin. As citizens of this country, we sit down and allow too much to go on. Too much to go on. Listen, it is taxpayers' money. Who pays the members of the force? And I want our citizens to think this in this way. We are paying an organization to abuse us. We are paying an organization to kill us. That is what it boils down to. That is what it boils down to. We have to demand a better service. Look, there has been numerous since in my time as a policeman, and even as my time as the personal assistant to the former Commissioner Henry Green. I am aware of a number of initiatives which have been implemented, which have been proposed to have a better perception of the police force. Sometimes it was tossed around, remove the word force, bring in the word service, but it was all geared to have a more professional approach to policing in this country. And to me, all of that has been eroded. All of that has been eroded. Because there are too many instances where the police are acting excessively, and it must come to an end. Must come to an end.
Mr. Slowe, I know that you have another appointment,
Yeah.
but
Let me chip in. This conversation is rich.
You stay with us for a bit.
Yes. I
want to ask you this.
Yeah,
I want to ask you this. This is regional division number 1. This incident comes after Mr. Saw's incident. It appears as though there is something built in to the police in this division when it comes to this whole business of narcotics and criminality. What does this say of the Guyana police force as a whole and the government that superintends the Guyana police force? I mean, all of these things have happened, and the leader of the opposition has signaled to the president that he is never going to support the confirmation of Clifton Hicken as Commissioner of Police. And in spite of all that has been happening, the government of Guyana dug deep and found a series of reasons why Hicken should be confirmed, and making him look like the best Commissioner of Police since independence. What are the implications of what's happening in the police force, Mr. Slowe, and its relationship with the citizens of this country? And I'm going to ask you a slightly hard one here. This fourth-ranking police officer, senior superintendent, sanctioned by the the United States authority, for doing these acts relating to drug trafficking while in the active service and command of a police division. What does it say for the Guyana police force by association?
Well, let me say this. You made the point that the government, even though the leader of the opposition indicated that he's not going to support the appointment of Clifton Hicken as Commissioner of Police. Remember, he had passed the retirement age and all that. But you say they found reasons to appoint him. I disagree with that. They manufactured reasons. They did not find reasons. They manufactured reasons to have him. So I just want to have the record say.
I tapped the mat 3 times, sir.
Yes, okay. But they manufactured reasons. And let me say this. As Mr. Todd rightly pointed out, many initiatives have been taken over the years to make sure that policemen are held accountable, right? When I was the chairman of the Police Service Commission, I did a survey, and I discovered that one of the main problems is that the disciplinary action is not taken against ranks when they're found in contravention of the relevant laws. I did that myself. Even when matters go to the Director of Public Prosecutions for legal advice, and the DPP advises departmental charge against those persons, nothing happens. Very often, like the same matter we talk about with the Warrows, they're going to tell you OPR investigating. OPR, that overburdened unit in the police force, because everything is OPR. Same thing. They will investigate, nothing happens. Let me take it further, because I say it's a crisis of management in the police force at the senior level. And I maintain that we have honest, hardworking junior ranks and people, even some senior ranks. But if you don't, but exactly, but if they're not properly led, this is the result. And let me tell you further, don't exclude the judiciary and from blame, because many times matter get before them, and what happens? At rap on the knuckle, the commander now of Region 1, Christian Romana, he arrested the lawyer Tamika Clark for advising her client to stay, not to give a statement. He was a superintendent then. The matter went to court. The state was sued. The judge, the chief justice, found in favor of the state, awarded damages. Right? And what happened? The man is promoted in favor of the attorney who is now a magistrate. And what happened? The man is promoted thereafter. So there's no incentive. Well, put it this way, you get a lot of incentive to do wrong, because when you do wrong, you are going to be rewarded with promotion and other things. So we have to look at it holistically, right? Because I am saying a serious matter like that, where a senior officer at the time he held the rank of superintendent at the customs, at the special organized crime unit, he arrested an attorney because the attorney advised our client not to give a statement to the police, right? That is what a senior officer did. And then the state is sued, the state is found liable, damages are awarded to the attorney, and the man is promoted. The man is promoted. How more glaring can you get? That is the reality, because no one is held accountable. I oftentimes refers to a statement by the current commissioner, Clifton Hicken, that he took $8.5 million from a businessman to finance the wedding of one of his senior ranks. He admitted that in a statement, and they did not see that even though the vice president came out publicly and said that is reprehensible and reprehensible, what happened? The man is promoted to commissioner thereafter. So what do you expect? What do you expect?
It may have been reprehensible, the quantity. It may have been too little in the eyes of the vice president.
For all you know, 8.5 maybe is too small an amount.
Yeah.
Maybe that is what he was implying. But let me say this. The problem, again, I want to repeat, is a crisis of management at the senior level. The issue with Shaw being alleged to be a drug runner, we had Mandel across the river, and
Running whiskey.
And I'm continue to
The
say,
whiskey runner.
I will continue to say that if you examine it, there has been a concerted effort over the past couple of years to Indianize the police I command. I say that without any fear of contradiction. I have the record.
Clear.
And then the people who are put there, they are not competent to run divisions, and the examples are numerous. Look at again, I say the double A incident. The police commander and assistant commissioner turned up at the scene the very night that the child was reported missing and did not know what appropriate action to be taken. It's incompetence, but that perhaps that is what qualifies one to get promoted. That is what qualifies one to be a divisional commander. And on the other hand, you have many competent people who are there. They are stifled. They are not given promotion. And before I close this part, let me say this. The force is a demoralized organization. The force is demoralized. People are ashamed to be associated. I get calls, I get text messages. People are asking me about the process to resign. Some people with lots of service, right? They want to leave the force. Some of them don't want to. They get 10, 12 years service, and they're seeking a way where they can leave and still get some type of benefit. They are exploring all of that. If they want to doubt us, let them say tomorrow that they're going to give, let's say, ranks who about 10 years or more service, the option to resign with some type of gratuity or something like that. The force can be almost empty.
Just tell them a change. Just tell them a change is coming.
Yeah, well, yes, I know.
September 1.
I know that they had a big cleanup operation this morning, and I say it's really sad. It's really sad to see the police out cleaning the seawall.
Which is interesting, Mr. Slowe. Yeah. Interesting because they're not cleaning the police stables.
Exactly. That's what they're cleaning at the class. They're cleaning us to start with the police stables, and I'm not talking about the stables at the Mountain Branch. I'm talking I'm not talking about that. That is where the cleaning up has to start. Yeah. That is where it has to start. But you're cleaning the road of all feces and all this type of thing, and you get more than that in the very, very organization. So, what do you expect?
Dr. Todd, relationships. The government of Guyana, Ministry of Home Affairs, Commissioner of Police. Well, we leave out the Police Service Commission because they don't exist at the moment. It is apparent that at the level of the police force, incompetence reigns supreme. It is evident in the police force that inappropriate conduct is being rewarded. It is apparent that the executive is unaware of what's happening in the police force. It is evident that the American authorities are cognizant of what activities are taking place under the watchful eyes of the police force. The US authorities have acted. The Guyanese authorities have not acted, but now seek to convey the impression to the citizens that it is the US authorities who are under some kind of obligation to supply them with information in order for them to act. It appears as though the government wants to see what cards the Americans are holding before they decide if they're going to cash in or continue to play. What, in the legal sense, does this mean for relationships generally and bilateral relationships with a friendly nation in the absence of actions by the Guyana government?
Well, I will tell you, the Guyana government will act on any recommendation or any initiative posited by the United States. I don't believe that they are going to oppose that at all, because what we have found over the years is that the United States, they operate a lot more thorough in their investigations, and they never act without solid information and evidence that will back a certain initiative. You just look at it. Seldomly do you have the United States moving, and we're looking at bilateral arrangements now with a number of countries, them going back to a country and apologizing that they have acted wrong. You don't have that. You have sometimes years of intelligence work on the ground before they act. And so it is, and it goes back to what Mr. Slowe said. It places us in a very embarrassing situation where our agency, our government, is awaiting information from the US authority on things that are happening in your own country. It's not, no matter how you try to analyze it, it's not a good sight. You have, and Mr. Slowe will say most correctly, you have a special branch. Put aside everything else. You have a special branch.
Special branch.
Well, I don't know how special they are now, but they are supposed to have a lot of information on the ground, what's happening, even information on the people who are investigating.
Yep.
And feeding so that you can have an organization that is current, that is proactive, and that is able to make intelligence decisions. So you have now an entire investigation that is going to be stalled because we are waiting for the United States to send down a thick file of information that they have gathered. It does not say well for the police force. It does not say well for the leadership of Home Affairs, which is from policy level, being able to look at the having responsibility for such an enforcement organization. Doesn't say well at all. It shows clearly that it's either they have certain information and they have turned a blind eye to that information, or they don't have information at all. And as you rightly said, they're waiting to see what trump cards are there in the United States before they make certain information. But it don't matter how you twist it, it still places us in an embarrassing situation.
I think a little bit more embarrassing than we're willing to admit. Why do I say that? When the US authorities sanctioned Mr. Mohammed and his son, along with a permanent secretary for the Ministry of Home Affairs, the government of Guyana said that they had no information on what led to the family members being sanctioned, and that they were going to ask the US authorities. Jagdeo said, Ali said, that they were going to ask the US authorities for the information. And upon receipt of that information, they will launch a local investigation. They never pushed for that information. The permanent secretary at the time was an elected member of the Central Committee of the People's Progressive Party. That close to home politically. The family in question provided transportation and protection for Ali when he became president, and just before and just after. That's from the horse's mouth. No attempts were made to get this information from the US. But the younger Mohammed decided he had an interest in politics. And he decided that he will make himself available to run for government, to run for political office. And then you start to hear Jagdeo saying, oh, you robbed the treasury 50 million US dollars. And you're hearing Ali saying he evaded taxes. And you hear Jagdeo every time he speaks talking about, oh, he smuggled 10,000 kilograms of gold. I believe that's the number. All of a sudden, the information that they never had and that was never supplied to them is available to them now to use politically. And that's the extent of the embarrassment as a nation of which I speak. The double standard of these people in government. All of a sudden, a friendship goes sour. And one party to that former friendship becomes persona non grata, becomes all sorts of things as labeled by Jagdeo. But in this case, a policeman is sanctioned, and you're not prepared to act on it, and you're not prepared to use information in the public domain to discuss the issue. You're waiting on the Americans. Please help me understand this, Mr. Slowe. I'm not up to scratch with the level of thinking here.
Well, let me say this. Let me make it absolutely clear. The U.S. is not going to tell them what action is to be taken against Slowe and others. They're not going to do that. They have already done what they required, what they want to do. They sanction him. They expect you to now take the appropriate action. In the absence of a police service commission, as we know they don't have a police service commission, I think the thing for them to do is to ask Slowe to resign. There is no question about that. Call him in and tell him based on what has happened, he should resign. So what you want to suggest to me, that 2-3 months or 2-3 weeks down the line, Slowe is going to reappear as a senior superintendent in the police force and put to work where? Because right now they talk about administrative leave, which according to what we say is a misnomer. There's no administrative leave because there's no police service commission, and the law on that is clear. So they might park up getting his salary and allowances and so on. You have to cut loose. That is what you have to do. You can't dismiss him because that will be unlawful. Only the police service commission can do that. So I am not advocating for any violation of his rights, right? But I'm saying he should be called and quietly told, well, buddy, you got to go home, you got to resign. That should be the correct thing to do. But suddenly they're going to remember that the Constitution provides what they call a provision which says that you're innocent until proven guilty. They're going to suddenly remember that. They're going to suddenly remember a provision of innocence, that they're innocent, right? They're going to remember that. But there are so many other recent cases where they did not remember that. But in this particular case, they might suddenly remember there's a presumption of innocence. But presumption of innocence or not, right? You cannot have, and I maintain this, right? Unless you want to question the U.S., the integrity of the U.S. agencies that sanction him, you cannot have a police officer who has been accused by the most powerful nation in the world with perhaps the best intelligence gathering apparatus of being involved in drug smuggling to remain in the police force. Because remember, as we speak here now, he's still a member of the force.
Yes.
He's still a member of the force. And so how are you going to go on from there? It's a simple thing. Ask him to go away. Get him to resign.
Building on what you just said, Mr. Slowe, Dr. Todd, if we are to go by what Jagdeo has been saying, for the purposes of this conversation, all who associated with Mohammed can get a visa pull. All who associated with Mohammed can get sanctioned. Transfer that thinking into the Guyana police force.
The commission, everybody should get sanctioned. If if you use the same reasoning, but if you had to use that same reasoning, the commissioner of police, all the senior officers, because this man would have been sitting in what they call at the senior executive level, all the policemen who work with him, that's what they suggested. I mean, this thing is ludicrous. When you listen to them, they speak. And I have said repeatedly, I like when they talk and I like when they write, because then you can analyze it to see how foolish they are. Because if you were to use that, they've got so far to say, Odessa, you're tired thing early. Our visa was, she wasn't allowed to enter the States because of her association with the Mohammedans. So what happened now? You got a senior police officer, Emnat Sass, senior superintendent of police, right? Senior superintendent, get accused of drug smuggling. He has been interacting, no doubt, with the commissioner of police, with the man in operation, because in the line of command, he's expected to report to those persons almost daily. So there has been this type of interaction. So I guess all of them got to face sanctions as well.
And then, one sec, Dr. Todd. In addition, at the level of the executive, they have failed to put in place a functioning and properly constituted police service commission. Therefore, they are unable to act in a lawful manner, treating with this particular officer. There's some level of transfer of the same thought process to the executive here, and I believe Mr. Jagdew is part of that executive.
All of them. All are based, and we're using their reasoning, This is not something that we are coming up with. We are saying that if we were to extrapolate from what they're saying, then all of these people should be sanctioned. They might even want to go back to see who promoted him, because he was promoted not so long ago. I think it was this year. The man was promoted. So you got to see who made recommendation. That is what they are. So if you want to follow the line of their argument, that is what they're suggesting. That is what they're suggesting. Again, I say I am giving them free advice. I'm not a liar. I'm a former senior police officer, former chair of the Police Service Commission. Maybe they want to go to legal advice. Forget about the advice that the Attorney General will give them, because he has misled them on numerous occasions. Maybe they want to get some advice from Dr. Todd. Ask the man to resign, to save face, and then you can say, well, you've called on him to resign, and he has accepted. And therefore, but don't come and tell us that you're requesting information from the U.S. What do you expect them to tell you? They've already said that the man is involved in drug smuggling. And, lest we forget, this is a link with Colombians, 2 Colombians are also sanctioned. Don't forget that.
I stayed away from that for a little bit so we could deal with the kind of police force.
Well, yeah,
and the government together.
It's said to be in collusion with the Colombians to smuggle drugs. And if you read the release from the Treasury Department, they detail all the arrangement with submarine and all these type of things, and the man doing. And you want to suggest to me that in a few weeks or a few months' time, this man can be back in uniform, put to command some police division, or continue to draw salary? Man, no, get out of the area.
Or turn up at the court fully attired and
a certain other man, yes.
Dr. Todd, go right ahead, sir.
No, I just wanted to see that association has to be clearly defined. Now, U.S. sanctions are very, especially when it's a sanction coming from OFAC, it's a very serious sanction. And now these sanctions by itself prohibits automatically all U.S. citizens, all permanent residents, holders. That's one category of dealing with any person who is sanctioned. And when we talk about dealing with them, I think we need to be clear, having any type of economical relations with those persons, meaning you continue to transact business, etc., with them, or you are facilitating them in the same capacity in which they were sanctioned from. Now, it also extends to non-U.S. citizens, and there is the second category of persons who can also find themselves against certain charges by the U.S. authorities in relation to undermining those sanctions. So just like how you have various steps that the United States can take against a country or a company or organization, the same goes for individuals who are also sanctioned. You cannot, it is not business as usual and in plain sight. And so you can't find innovative ways or persons who are going to facilitate the comfort and continued operations of individuals who are sanctioned. Then now you move into the realm of being a person of interest, which undermines or which affects the enforcement of that sanction, and that in itself is a criminal charge under the law. You can also be have a civil suit for interfering or undermining those sanctionees. All right, you can also have a civil suit in relation to that. So this thing about association, one has to be very clear with it. It can't just be because I'm your friend and I knew you for many years. And because of the fact that you're sanctioned, then I just drop all tools. I think it is, and I think the ambassador, the
Yes.
honorable ambassador, was very clear on that.
Yeah.
That this myopic type of thinking in terms of association, we have to do away with it, and we have to see persons who
Yeah.
are involved in trying to facilitate the continued operations of persons who are sanctioned. That undermines it.
Yeah, I think we clear on that, but I was just trying to import Jagdio's version of logic,
Mhm.
the illogical version of logic, um, into the conversation, because that's what he tries to put out there
Portray.
to frighten
Yes, yes.
citizens and to
That
forward
that
his
has no
propaganda.
that has no proper legal standing.
Right, his
Not by
propagandistic
the U.S.
agenda.
and definitely not by
But
the
but
our laws.
but tell us this, Dr. Todd. The ambassador spoke to monetary transactions
Mhm.
as that link that could cause the sanctions to be extended to another person.
Yes.
Talk to us on the question of an employer paying a salary to an employee who is sanctioned and who continues to remit salaries to that person's either bank account or in hand. Would would that, for example, the the former permanent secretary of the Ministry of Home Affairs, you would forgive me, but I am completely unaware as to whether she is still on the payroll. I know that she was, I believe, sent on some form of leave, but the supposition here is that she is still an employee, still receiving emoluments. And even if that is not the case with respect to her, this police officer, because of what we know about the Police Service Commission, is still an employee. And being an employee still comes with some entitlements, including remuneration. The consequences of the employer paying the sanctioned employee and maintaining that financial relationship.
I am of the personal view, and I can be wrong, but I am of the personal view that if you have an employee who has been sanctioned and that person is receiving salaries, that person is receiving salaries under different law and provision. If they
Okay.
work, they must be paid. All right. Now, in terms as to whether the person is able to do banking transactions, whether locally and internationally, that in itself coming under a different consideration in terms of FATF and your AML laws and so on, is going to be affected because a sanctioned person under the AML law will automatically put themselves in a bracket of a person of interest. automatically. I mean, don't let us fool ourselves. It will happen automatically. So a number of steps, even under our AML laws, will kick in. But I am of the view, as I said, I can be wrong, but I am of the view that if a person is maintained on your payroll and has worked, then they have to receive salary.
But
I don't believe this
in the
the
case of a
sanction.
policeman, sorry to interrupt you, in the case of a policeman whose uniform and appointment that goes with it enables him to do certain things, maybe in continuation of what led to the sanction. You as an employer, you become an enabler. Talk to us a
It
bit on that.
it does raise concerns. It does raise very, very serious concerns in relation to where the person is in a responsibility as a commander, or has responsibility for certain duties that will involve movements and will involve protection. If you look back to what the allegation is in terms of the person being as a facilitator, allowing free passage, all right, one has to consider whether remaining in the same position or remaining in another position within the organization, that the person's influence will not have a continued operation surrounding what he's been sanctioned about, and therefore it does raise some problem. And I believe that's why Mr. Slowe was giving a very clear, wasn't buttering this up, was giving a clear resolution to the problem.
Yep.
That there
Yep.
ought to be a resignation because they are going to have serious implications.
Right, Mrs. Slowe, we winding down here. I believe not so long ago, there was what was referred to as the strengthening of a bit of legislation that treats with extradition. I believe that it was a simplification of the process that was, in fact, the meat of the matter. As a person in whose veins run the business of law enforcement, what are we to expect following these sanctions and the nature of the offenses cited by the U.S. authorities as it relates to enforcement, maybe as far as extradition? What are we to expect?
They say, be careful what you wish for. You know, I said it when it come. Be careful what you wish for. Well, let me say this. Based on my knowledge, is that they're not gonna request extradition based on the sanction. But
Right.
For all you know, they might have had evidence of criminal activity, and if they have evidence of criminal activity, then they are likely to file charges in the United States. Because remember, we talk about drug trafficking to the United States and other places. So therefore, I suspect that the United States would have jurisdiction to deal with such a matter. And if they have jurisdiction, we might very well hear about indictment on seal indictments. And once indictments are on seal, then the next step might very well be for
international arrest warrants,
in extradition. And as I said, the process has been simplified. And I said, be careful what you wish for, because at the time when they were singing about this extradition, my suspicion is that they were targeting certain social media influencers, right?
Yes.
That is what I believe, that they were targeting certain social media influencers. But the thing is wide, all encompassing. So therefore, again, we say sanction. We don't know if this is the beginning of a process. It might very well be the beginning of a process, which might end up with indictments being on seal. They might very well have indictments already being on seal. Extradition process commencing. Let's wait and see. We shall see. But again, I close by saying, be careful what you wish for.
Dr. Todd. You know, it was said that when in government, shape legislations that you can live with when in opposition.
If you ask me for my closing, I will say the same thing. Be careful what you wish for.
Gentlemen, it has been a pleasure and an honor having you on Nation Watch again. Thank you for your insights and your deep knowledge into the subject that we discussed. And I believe I speak for all of our viewers and listeners across Guyana and beyond our borders when I say thank you very much. You have been exceptionally informative in this conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all we have time for today on Nation Watch. Well, before I go, I must remind you that in the words of the leader of the parliamentary opposition, leader of the People's National Congress Reform, for Guyana to grow, the PPP must go. Until we meet again, God bless.